Breaking news, January 16, 2026. Ukraine running out of power as energy crisis deepens Zelenskyy. Restoration is underway after every strike. On a daily basis, not only are power plants being restored, but also the technical capacity to increase imports is being built. As of yesterday, consumption was high, around 18 gigawatts, while our capacity was about 11 gigawatts. But something is being restored every day, the president of Ukraine said. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Araya in the latest Deep Dive by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today, we're going to cover...
Well, we're going to cover the escalating strategic war on Ukraine's energy infrastructure.
Right, it's been going on for years.
It has, but we're now 3 years into this campaign, and the tactics have shifted dramatically. Experts are calling the current state of the grid the worst impact we've seen to date.
The worst.
Yeah, and not necessarily because the current attacks are the most intense, but because the system itself is, well, it's finally failing after years of accumulated damage.
So today we're diving
Deep into the technical vulnerability of Ukraine's grid, and, maybe more importantly, the revolutionary plan to decentralize its power system. That's how they plan to survive this winter and secure their future.
Okay, let's unpack this right away. Those numbers from President Zelenskyy, they're staggering.
They really are.
When you see 18 gigawatts of consumption against only 11 gigawatts of available capacity, you're not just looking at a minor shortfall. That's a systemic failure.
It is. That 7 gigawatt deficit, that is the gap between demand and, honestly, survival.
Yeah.
And it translates instantly into the human experience of this war.
What does that actually mean for people?
Think about it. In Kyiv, after the mass attacks on January 9th as of the 12th, you still had roughly 800 residential buildings without any heating.
In the middle of a Ukrainian winter.
Exactly. So we're talking about an infrastructure crisis, but it's really a crisis of heat, of water, and basic sanitation.
It's interesting you said this is the worst impact, even if the attacks aren't the most intense. Why is that distinction so important?
Because it points to this concept analysts call cumulative degradation.
Okay.
An expert, Elena Pavlenko, she put it perfectly. She said, maybe this wasn't the worst attack, but this is the worst impact we've seen.
So what's changed?
In the first year, sure, attacks damaged substations, but the system had spare parts. It had backup capacity, repair crews weren't totally exhausted. Now
there's nothing left in the tank.
Nothing. The system is running on critically overloaded components.
Yeah.
You have transformers that should have been retired years ago still trying to carry the load. The spare parts are gone.
Especially the big ones, I imagine.
The large, long lead time transformers, yes. They've been used up. So now, every single successful strike causes these cascading exponential failures because there is no resilience left. The system can't absorb the shock.
So DTEC highlighted this. When you repair one part, you're just pushing the other remaining parts past their safe limit.
Precisely, and that's what creates these unavoidable outages, even if there aren't new strikes. The whole system is just stressed to its breaking point.
Which explains some of the response efforts we're seeing.
Absolutely. Ukraine's State Emergency Service has set up a dedicated energy unit. Its only job is rapid repairs and deploying generators where power just can't be restored. This is emergency triage under fire.
And the worst-case scenario planning. That tells you everything. The State Forest Agency has stockpiled 220,000 cubic meters of firewood.
And that's not for camping. That's for citizens, the army, civilian facilities. It's a plan for if centralized heating and power just completely fail.
They're literally planning for the grid to go back to the 19th century.
It's a dual reality. You have these heroic daily restoration efforts, but you also have strategic preparation for a complete collapse.
Let's pivot to the strategy of the attacker here. Because this isn't just random targeting, it's a dynamic, adaptive campaign.
Very adaptive. Denise Sacco pointed out that Russia now uses thousands of drones. They have years of intelligence on how Ukraine's grid works, how it responds.
So they're learning.
They're learning. And that's led to these really distinct phases in the energy war. A clear evolution from disruption to destruction, and now to something more localized.
Okay, walk us through that. What was the goal back in 2022?
So the first winter, 2022 to 23, was all about the high voltage transmission grid.
The big highways of the power system.
Exactly. They were targeting TSO substations, the transmission system operators. The goal wasn't really to permanently destroy the power plants, but to cause these huge synchronous disruptions.
Hit the junctions, stop the flow of power, and throw the whole system into chaos.
Right. It forces emergency shutdowns. It's a quick way to cause mass blackouts without having to hit a huge, heavily defended power plant.
But the Ukrainians got good at fixing those.
They got very good, especially with international help. So the strategy had to shift. In the second and third winters, the focus became irreparable harm. This total destruction of generation capacity. The big thermal and hydroelectric power plants, things that are incredibly costly and slow to repair. Some components take years to manufacture.
And that's what led to those deep, persistent rolling blackouts.
Exactly, because the total amount of available power in the country was just drastically reduced.
Which brings us to this winter. The current strategy, the targets seem much more surgical now.
They are. It's a strategy of demoralization and localized paralysis. They're hitting three key areas at once.
Okay, why?
First, gas production. We've seen reported losses of about 60% of capacity after the October 2025 attacks. Second, they're going after combined heat and power plants, the CHPs.
Which provide both electricity and that critical district heating for cities.
And third, they're hitting the local distribution centers, the DSO substations, especially near the front lines. If you hit a DSO, you create a hyper-localized crisis. You can cut power and heat to a few neighborhoods for weeks. Maximum suffering, maximum logistical strain.
So the goal is to make life functionally impossible in specific urban areas.
That seems to be the operational goal. And it's coupled with these specific grid isolation tactics.
What do you mean by that?
The grid is a Soviet legacy. A lot of the power generation hydro-thermal plants is on the right bank of the Dnipro River. Russia has been targeting the high-voltage substations that cross the river.
Trying to cut off the industrial east from its power source.
Trying to disconnect areas like Dnipro and Zaporizhia. If you can isolate a region, even if there's power elsewhere in the country, you can't get it to them efficiently. It just compounds the deficit.
And if the physical battlefield is shifting, we have to talk about the digital one. This isn't just about missiles.
No, you absolutely cannot overstate the cyber front. Historically, Russia has used Ukraine as a testing ground, a playground for cyber weapons since 2014.
We saw that with the 2015 and 2016 grid attacks.
We did. And what those attacks really exposed was a huge technical vulnerability, a lack of proper isolation between OT, operational technology,
The computers that actually run the machinery.
and IT, information technology, your corporate network, emails, payroll.
So an attacker could get in through a weak point, like a phishing email, and then move across the network until they're controlling the physical power grid.
That's exactly what happened. That lack of segmentation allowed them to move laterally and disrupt physical infrastructure. And during this war, the attacks have been relentless. Over 300 documented by August 2022 alone.
What's the objective with those now?
It's twofold. One, military intelligence collection. And two, disrupting the control rooms, deleting data, forcing operators back to manual analog systems.
Which slows down their response to the physical attacks.
Precisely. If you can delay restoration by even a few hours, you dramatically increase the impact of the physical strike.
Which brings us to the biggest strategic question of all. You have this aging, centralized, Soviet-era grid facing this relentless adaptive campaign. If you can't repair it fast enough, how does Ukraine win this? What's the solution that breaks this cycle?
The military solution, paradoxically, is an energy solution. It's a complete foundational shift away from that centralized vulnerable grid to a highly resilient decentralized system.
Based on what?
On what are called distributed energy resources, or DRs. The reality is blunt. The country faces a peak winter demand of up to 18.5 gigawatts, with a supply deficit that could hit nearly 6 gigawatts. That's projected to last through this winter and the next.
And you can't just patch the old system fast enough to close that gap?
Not while it's being attacked, you just can't.
So explain DRs in practical terms for someone listening. What are we talking about?
We're talking about smaller modular technologies that produce power closer to where it's actually consumed. So think rooftop solar, utility scale solar farms, wind power, large battery storage units,
And for stability.
and critically for stability, small modular gas turbines. The strategic advantage is resilience through geographic distribution.
It sounds like you're creating thousands of microgrids all across the country.
That is the core idea. If you have thousands of smaller generators spread out, destroying one large central power plant, which is a huge, easy target for a missile, it doesn't cripple an entire region anymore.
The system can island itself.
Yes. It gains the ability to self-sustain the local area, even if the main transmission lines are down. That modularity lets the system withstand and recover from attacks far more effectively.
And this isn't just a wartime measure, is it? This lines up with their longer-term goals.
Absolutely. This strategy pulls double duty. It solves the immediate capacity and vulnerability problem, but it also supports Ukraine's goals of EU integration and decarbonization.
Right, their 2030 energy and climate plan.
Exactly. That plan calls for roughly 24 gigawatts of solar and 11 gigawatts of wind. Decentralization is how they bridge that gap between military necessity and European alignment.
I want to zero in on the math here. The modeling for the coming months. What does it actually predict for the average person, hour by hour?
The modeling is it's sobering. The GDU analysis, even in a baseline scenario, assuming no more major attacks after mid-November 2025, it shows the need for load shedding has gone up sixfold.
And let's just clarify, load shedding, that's not a brownout.
No. Load shedding is a forced scheduled outage, a temporary blackout in your area to stop the entire system from a catastrophic, uncontrolled collapse.
So what does a six-fold increase look like?
In that baseline scenario, the maximum required load shedding is projected at 5.5 gigawatts.
Right.
That means outages will be needed in about 35% of all hours just to keep the lights on where they can.
A third of the time. And then there's the more severe scenario, the heat shock. That sounds absolutely devastating.
It's the domino effect. It's what happens when those CHPs, the combined heat and power plants, are destroyed. Cities lose their district heating.
So people will plug in electric space heaters.
Millions of them. And those heaters draw an enormous, unsustainable amount of power. That surge drives peak demand beyond anything the remaining grid could possibly handle.
So the demand spike is created by the attack itself.
Precisely. In that heat shock scenario, load shedding is required in about 50% of the hours, half the time. And the maximum outage requirement spikes to 6.5 gigawatts. It's a vicious cycle.
This just highlights how vital Europe's role is. If Ukraine is short that much power, they need every megawatt they can get from their partners.
The integration with the European network, ENTSOE, is the critical lifeline. It's the pressure valve. Import capacity was already increased to 2.1 gigawatts by December 2024.
And the modeling shows how much that helps.
It shows it's a one-to-one trade-off. Listen to this.
Okay.
Adding just 500 megawatts of import capacity reduces the need for new domestic gas-fired capacity by the exact same amount. It provides critical flexibility.
That's a huge return on investment for strengthening that cross-border infrastructure. But what's the long-term price tag to rebuild? You mentioned $13.4 billion.
That $13.4 billion is the estimate for what's called the gas-only scenario.
Yeah.
So just focusing on building about 5.2 gigawatts of gas capacity to quickly fill the supply gap.
The quick fix.
The quick fix. But here's the problem. If you choose that fix, you spend billions just to rebuild the same vulnerable, centralized target that Russia's have been trying to destroy for 3 years.
You'd be winning the immediate capacity battle, but losing the strategic war against vulnerability.
Correct. The strategic path, even though it needs more upfront financing and is way more complex to implement in a war zone, it has to be a diverse mix that includes these DERs.
So building resilience now is the only way.
It's the only way to safeguard the investment and create a truly modern defensive infrastructure. The cost of maintaining a centralized target is just perpetual war damage.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, and for the outcome of this energy conflict? The immediate fight is this daily battle of restoration, getting that 11 gigawatts of capacity up, increasing imports, stockpiling fuel. But the true long-term defense against this strategy isn't just repair. It's a foundational once-in-a-century shift.
Building a decentralized, smarter, and resilient grid from the ground up. The lesson here really goes beyond Ukraine. It's that a centralized system is a strategic liability in modern conflict. The choice for the future isn't just replacing what was lost. It's building a system that's designed from the start to deny the attacker their most valuable targets.
The question isn't whether Ukraine can rebuild its grid. It's whether the world, including its European partners, is prepared to fund a truly decentralized, resilient model that could fundamentally rewrite the rules of infrastructure warfare for every nation still relying on 20th century centralized power. You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Aurea, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.